Well, you're welcome to the Betfred Boxing Show with myself, Don McGuinness, and Anthony Crolla is back. Had a little week off last week, Anthony, but I'd like to say you're back and you're fighting fit, but you do sound like you got a little bit of a head cold. So what's going on?
I do, with the old dusky voice, but no, obviously I'm very worried at first because I've got 3 fighters out this weekend. So last thing I needed was to test positive for the virus. I missed that, but no, I'm all good now. I think it's definitely come out of me. Other than my voice breaking at the age of 34, I'm good. I'm fighting fit again now, despite this.
Excellent, excellent. Well, of course, it has been another busy one, and you were all over events at the weekend. We'll get to what's coming up for you this week, because as you say, I know it's going to be very, very busy for you as well. But a lot's been said about the Josh Warrington fight, the cut, Mauricio Lara. We only saw a couple of rounds. People have got wildly different opinions on how it was all shaping up after the first fight. So firstly, before we move on to look at a couple of the other bits and pieces, give us your overview really on the fight, the main event.
No, on the fights, I've been listening before it. Atmosphere, unbelievable. One, I think, the best ring entrances, despite being a Manchester United fan. Listen, you could feel the atmosphere through the TV screen or however you was watching the fight. But as for the fight itself, listen, I can't, there's a very, very different opinions, even in the lads who said Jack, there was very different opinions now, but I'm just it was just too early to tell. It was far too early to tell. Yes, Lara looked very confident. He looked very confident in there. He was letting his hands go, or looking to let his hands go. I looked very heavy-handed, but we've certainly also seen a much more focused Josh, defensively switched on. It was just too early to tell, and that makes it all the more reason to have that third fight, and I'm pretty sure we will see it. I think, but the only problem is now in between that was a terrible cut. It was an horrendous cut. If Josh looks to fight in between, and listen, if there's a chance for Josh to fight for a world title in between that, he's certainly not going to turn it down. But I'm pretty sure we see a third fight between Josh Warrington and Mauricio Lara.
Does he really need it, though? He's proved that he's got the mettle to get straight back in there. I mean, we know what happened, so we didn't see it progress, but he's proved that he's got over that hurdle mentally anyway. Got in the ring with the fella. We've not seen it. We've not seen the fight, but can he not now just think, all right, look, I tried. It didn't work out, but I need to move on. This fella could be out of the ring for 6, 7, 8 months. And
that's what I'm going to say. He's not going to fight Mauricio Lara next, unless Josh picks up an injury. He's going to be looking to be out before that cut is injured, because it was a bad cut. So we might, again, so to go back and where we might not see, depending on the route Josh goes, but Josh isn't at the stage in his career where he can afford to wait that long. You know, he's going to want to win. He wants to be champion of the world again. He does that. I think there always will be a call to see that third fight. It was warming up to be an absolute cracker as well. So I think there's a lot of people who would want to see it. But the career Josh Warrington's had, no, he doesn't owe anyone that to got to see a third fight, or your legacy will be tainted. That was certainly not the case. But I, for one, as a boxing fan, wouldn't mind seeing it. It was warming up to be a cracker.
There was shades at first when it was all unfolding, and a thought occurred to me that I remember you being very upset one night immediately when it was Gamaliel Diaz, and it was the third round, and a similar thing, a cut. Having said that, my first instinct were, I remember Crolla being really peeved with that one because he thought that he didn't want to come out the corner, and they were looking for a way out. That was the first accusation against Lara until everyone realised just how bad the cut was.
Yeah, no, it was a terrible cut, and it's like you say, we know that's going to take time. You could have the best plastic surgeon, the best healing process. That is going to take time. That cut. To he's not going to be ready to fight in a championship fight, a 12-rounder with Josh Warrington in 2021. Josh is going to look to be out in 2021 for sure. So we've just got to see. I think a lot depends now on the next fight that Josh takes.
But you have had that situation with the technical draw. How empty is it when you leave the ring, when you've not really got going?
I remember being sick of parrot because I think the cut that my opponent had certainly wasn't as bad as the Lara one, and I felt like he was happy enough with the decision for the fight to end. So I was basically disappointed. But when Josh looks back, he'll see there's no way Lara could have carried on with that cut. But listen, getting cheered into the ring of 20,000 people, being that charged, you could feel it. Like, and he says he was absolutely wired for that fight. You know, once the Kaiser Chiefs kicked in, he literally stormed to the ring. Like I say, it's the best atmosphere certainly we've seen in the last few years because of the pandemic, but unbelievable night, you know, for him. And he wanted that ending where he got his revenge. He put on a great night. Listen, everyone would have gone away from there having a fantastic night. But the main event, it was just, obviously it was a big anticlimax for everything else, you know, around the show. But great night of boxing. And there's some show we're going to talk about in a second, some great fights on the undercard. And we will see Josh Warrington back very soon.
Well, it is all about the next move, as you mentioned before, for Josh Warrington. So let's hear from the man himself.
Do you think he wanted to continue when you saw?
Do you know what? He seemed to complain every single thing. Every time I got in close, he would grab my arm, and Steve kept on saying to me, "Stop holding," but he kept cuddling my arm underneath. Every time I pushed close to him, he didn't want it. He wanted me at that mid-range so he could unload. Distance-wise and everything else, he was uncertain. Just didn't look like Canelo last time, and I certainly didn't feel like that anyway. Like I said, when I went back after the first one, I thought to myself, I fucked in the lose this last time. But
mixed emotions, I suppose, with Maxi winning as well.
Yeah, obviously, I couldn't let myself play on, so I'm chuffed to bits for him. Absolutely chuffed to bits for Maxi. Obviously, that's one good thing of tonight, but I give him a hug, you know, told him well done, but I started to do my bit, didn't I? Not to be off the ball.
Do you want the third fight?
It's still raw, isn't it? It's still raw. I mean, I'd hate to have that one loss against Mauricio and then someone from over here goes and fucking beats him. Do you know what I mean? Like, he fights a Lee Wood or a Kid Calwell. It just annoyed me. I mean, I wanted Buford tonight to say he's beating every man he's faced in the ring with. And I thought that tonight, last night I come down and I was stood in the ring and that, and I could just see it. I'd see it. I'm gonna get redemption. To be here.
So Josh Warrington, it will be interesting to see what happens next. But of course, the big night in Leeds, it wasn't just about Josh, because there was plenty of action and plenty that went the distance as well. Katie Taylor, of course, beat Jennifer Hahn. Conor Benn in action against Adrian Granados. And again, they were the other key fights, if you like, of the night. And what particularly caught your eye on?
I think Katie Taylor, another dominant performance. Listen, it's always a pleasure watching Katie Taylor in action. I think, I say all the time, she's inspired generation of female fighters and unbelievable reception she got herself. I think she's a Leeds fan herself. Not too happy about that, but it's Katie Taylor, so she can do what she wants. But no, another very dominant performance. And listen, Katie's been around a long time. But how she's talking, she's like, I want the big fights. Obviously, Serrano fights got mentioned, but there's not too many more of those big nights left, you'd think. You know, at the end of the day, I think she's 35 now. She's been fighting at the top level for, probably 15 years, you know, with amateurs as well. Like, every fight's in a tournament, major tournament. What more can Katie Taylor do? What more can Katie Taylor do? But but it's nice to hear that she still wants those big fights. And going off the last few performances, there is still a few big nights in her, but always a pleasure to see Katie Taylor in action. Conor Benn, Granados, very sort of surprising the way Granados thought that he possibly could have won the fight when I think absolutely no one else at all seen it like that. He did ask Conor Benn a few questions, but I think also it shown Conor Benn. I thought it was valuable rounds in the bank. I think people was getting a little bit carried away saying the names that they were saying, and I think I think they was 10 good learning rounds for him. I think, like I say, I think we're all Conor Benn fans, very, very excited, but there's still a lot of learning that he needs to do. And able to say that he's the hardest worker in the room. and he's shown some improvements. But that's the kind of fight what I think he needed. The last thing he did was to blow someone else away, and then being taught the Avanesians or the Sean Porters. The lad's still learning. He's improving all the time. But he's still learning before he steps into that world-class bracket.
It's got to be said, though, with all the action that was going on, there was one absolute star of the night, and I think no one can argue with this. Maxi Hughes has got to be getting all the acclaim, and he deserves every single bit. I mean, we spoke to him as part of the Boxing Show last week. The most unassuming lad. Again, you know, if we're going to bring you into this again, there's similarities that he's had a lot of speed bumps, more than you had in terms of, you know, some of the defeats he's had. He's never stopped, never gave up, and and now he's got a world title of sorts, an IBO world title. Just fantastic, and the way he boxed was brilliant.
He boxed superb. He really did, and you know, it's hindsight's giving, but I remember thinking, I really fancy him to do this on points. I know we didn't know loads about Stefan, but he blew away Tennyson, who was blowing away everyone else. It genuinely couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I think you see stuff from the past, how his career, like he still works now. Painter decorator. And he has anyone had a more successful pandemic than that lad? I really don't know. It's he's just turned his career around. He's picked up a version of a world title at the weekend. Big fights coming, and he's just getting better and better. And I think the link up with Sean O'Hagan, you're going to sing his praises a lot, but has been fantastic. And, you know, massive respect to them both. But to Maxi Hughes, he's just living proof that persistence, you know, one defeat doesn't define you. A few defeats don't define you. It's how you keep coming back, and he's come back from it. He's in the form of his career, and he's still improving. But without a doubt, the performance of the night on Saturday night at Headingley was Maxi Hughes.
Yeah. A couple of other standouts. Ebony Bridges was in against Miles Grangoff, and again, she did what she does. She entertains. She was, you know, she's a Leeds fan as well, so she was playing to the crowd. But she had a tough night against Gangloff, who can feel a little bit aggrieved, you know, quite rightly. I think you could look at that and say, well, did she do enough? Many would say she did. Bridges got the nod.
It was a very close fight, and you wouldn't have argued if it went the other way. One thing I really like about Ebony Bridges is she's tough. She's very tough. Forget all the acts that comes with it. You know, coming to the weigh-in, underwear, your reels, whatever. That girl's a tough girl. You looked at the Shannon Courtney fight with the eye, how she continued. Her hand had completely gone. She was still trying to throw that right hand. And I think, like I say, forget everything that comes with it. The heart she shows, the determination and bravery at times she shows is unreal. So I think, you know, you've got to give her credit for that. Yeah, it was a close fight. Listen, certainly not. I don't know if you could say it was controversial, but you wouldn't have argued if it went the other way, for sure.
Yeah. And another lad that's going to get a lot more attention, and rightly so, because he was very impressive, was Hopey Price. So that meant, of course, it gives a good excuse to catch up once again with the man in the corner, Dave Calwell. Well, it's always great to be joined by a man who wears many hats as well. Dave Calwell, of course, manager, trainer, has got a great stable of fighters in Rotherham, and of course, he knows everything that's going on in the business anyway. But firstly, Dave, we've got to talk to you about a fella that we did speak to you about last week, Hopey Price. He didn't let you down. He was fantastic on the undercard of Josh Warrington in that fight against Mauricio Lara.
No, I'm absolutely over the moon with Hopey and how he handled the whole occasion, because let's not forget, you know, it was only his sixth fight. It was his first time back in Leeds for years, because when as an international amateur, he's been boxing all over the world, and he's not boxing in Leeds for years and years since he was a little kid. So it was a big thing for him. And then to be on that show, such a massive show, open air, Headingley, Josh Warrington's undercard, I thought he handled the whole occasion great, which he has done every time. When he was out in Saudi, it was the same. But this is a little bit special when you're fighting another Leeds, you know, another hometown kid as well, who's got so much more experience. It could have affected him a little bit, but he never did. And even with the first round knockdown, and how many fighters and stablemates have you had where they've dropped somebody early in a big fight and then kind of like lost the composure, or you know, and he didn't. He was brilliant, and I'm over the moon with him, really am.
Dave, I think, with Hopey, obviously he's been very active, like recently, hasn't he, with Fight Camp, and then again there. It was a 10-rounder, wasn't it, as well, the other night. I always feel that, you probably heard the comparison, I feel there's a lot of Luke Campbell about Hopey Price, and Hopey Price is his own fighter, but how quick are you going to look to move him? Because a huge frame, it looks like he will eventually go through the weights a little bit. How quickly are you going to look to move Hopey?
You see, so you say that he's been active. He hasn't. He had 2 fights pretty close together.
Yeah.
And then we had the pandemic. And then he's had these 2 fights close together again. But 6 months in between. So that for a young fighter, there's a lot of inactivity.
A long time.
So now I want to get him out again before the end of the year. But the thing when in levels and things like that, each fight is going to be looked at on its own merit, and I'm not going to rush him into title fights and things like that. I know people would want, he should be. No, he's 6 fights in. He's 21 years old. As for the weight, it makes the weight so easily.
So easy.
It's mate. We work with Scott Robinson for the nutrition, Danny Wilson with the S&C work. It makes the weight, and I'm not joking. Fully hydrated. He's eating on the morning of the weigh-in, the night before. There's no problem with his weight yet. Obviously, in time he's gonna develop, and he could have growth spurt pretty quick at any time now at 21. So we'll judge that as it goes along. But in terms of caliber of opponents and fights, I wanted this as a 10-rounder because of that opponent. I thought that opponent was going to give us rounds. For me, anything perfect would have been round 6 beyond to top. I expect him to stop him, but I thought it would be, I wanted it to be round 6 and beyond. But it's like I said to Eddie, after this fight, just because it's a 10-rounder, because originally I wanted the area title. I wanted the area title for him because Zahir Hussein wouldn't do the weight and take that fight over 10 unless there were title on the line, and they couldn't get the area or something happened where we ended up with the IBO. So I've said to Eddie, look, his next fight doesn't have to be a 10-rounder. It can go back to 8-rounders. Listen, if a championship fighter can be boxing for a championship and then do a 10-rounder for a run, well, then when somebody fights for world title and gets beat for world title, they come back with an 8-rounder. So a kid that's 6-0, just because he's had one 10-round slated fight, doesn't mean that he's stuck at 10 rounds now. So his next fight for me will be an 8-rounder, and I want to get some solid fights at that. People like Joe Ham. Remez Mahmood, people like that, in good 8-rounders and maybe 10-rounders for certain fights, but that sort of level still. So he gathers that experience, and still guys, his last 2 fights now are guys that have come to win and expected to win. One unbeaten kid and one kid that's 16-1. So I want guys like that are coming to ask him questions, give him problems that he has to sort out in the fight under the lights. And then we can assess it as he goes along, and then say, right, okay, now he's ready for English title, now he's ready for British title eliminators and things like that.
Dave, just wanted to ask you, you've got Hopey, and we spoke about your gym last week, your stable. You've got really interesting one, obviously. Lerone Richards, Jordan Gill, Derek Chisora is back. Again, what can you tell us in terms of any other news then with fights coming up? Anything that you can give us an exclusive on?
So, a little bit of frustrating news was Jordan Gill was supposed to be fighting out in Barcelona on Friday, but he's ended up. He started feeling a bit under the weather, so I dropped it from a 10 to an 8-rounder, and said, look, let's see how you, because he had a few days off, so let's see how you come back and how you are. But then while he was having the days off, he just got worse. He went to the doctors, and they said that he's got bacterial pneumonia. So he's out, and then I've spoken to Eddie. He will get out again as soon as he's healthy enough to do so. But I don't know when that's going to be, because you don't know how long he's going to take to recover. It might be a couple of weeks and he's all right, or it might be longer.
Yeah,
Dave,
obviously, he's made a mistake before when not being 100%. You won't let him do that again. No, I won't. I won't know all. And so that's covered that basic. It's frustrating for him. I know that, and he's broken-hearted because he's a kid that just doesn't get the look. But it's just a case of time. And I saw the news today about Sonny Edwards, and I like saying to Jordan, look, Sonny Edwards is about to defend his world title. A much grander scheme of things, that's a massive thing. And on fight week he's out. So
it happens, and it's just something that you have to just get on with and adapt to, which he will do. Lerone, just waiting on S-Jam and Eddie Hearn to sort out his next fight date. That should be done at any point now because it's been dragging on a little bit. And Derek, I think he'll be November, December.
Dave, I was just going to say, obviously, the stable's absolutely flying with the fighters you train, but also fighters who you manage. You got another world champion recently in Lee Wood. Anything coming up? Anything? Well, it's not confirmed yet with Lee Wood, but any of the other fighters you manage in big fights coming up?
Well, Amy Timlin that I managed, Kieran Farrell,
European title, of course.
She's fighting for the European title this weekend as well. So that's a huge fight for them. So, you know, Amy will be looking to use her experience that she got in a Commonwealth title challenge, which she had a draw in. Very real tough fight for her. But Kieran's gone away, worked more with her, more on the mental side, because we feel that you know, the occasion got to her a little bit. She's been used to boxing on little small shows, put on the big show. She's only a young girl as well. But I've spoken to him this morning, and he says that she's absolutely flying. Mentally, she's very, very confident, and she knows that she's just got to go out there and perform how she does. And they believe that, as we all do, that she'll become European champion, which is, you know, is going to be great for her and great for her confidence as well. So she's doing that. I'm looking at getting a couple of fighters out now. The small old shows are back. You know, a few fighters that I manage. I'll look to be getting him out there. And going back to Lee Wood, I'm just over the moon for Lee, because he's had a very, very, you know, tough, difficult, long career.
Yes.
But now it's, you know, it's all come good now. So we're just waiting for news to clear up what's going to happen with him, because there is a rematch clause. But then the WBA came out and said that he's got to fight Conlon, as Conlon was made interim champion a week after they crowned Lee as the WBA champion, which is, I just thought, what's the point in bringing out an interim title when the actual title's active?
And then there's the situation with Santa
with the
Cruz.
super champ.
Yeah.
So my opinion on that is Santa Cruz hasn't boxed in that division for about two and a half years or something, and defended that title. How can you still say that he's your world champion? How can you say that? He's not boxed there. He's not been active there, and it's not because he's injured. It's just that he's chose not to defend the belt. Strip him of the title. He shouldn't be world champion. And then Lee's boxed Kanzu, who was, I think, was ranked number 3 in the Ring magazine and seen as one of the top guys in the division. So that deserved to be a world title, you know, their world title fight, WBA's world title fight. So he should be world champion. So then a week later, they've switched a fight that was originally supposed to be at super bantamweight on fight week and only got changed on actual fight week from super bantam. They've switched to featherweight and then decided, I'll tell you what, we'll sanction that as an interim title. Why do you need to do that? If you want to do anything like that, make it an eliminator. Not a problem. But there's no need to tarnish your organization even more to come out with an interim strap, you know. So it is what it is. But once we know where that standing is with the rematch clause, because Golden Boy want the rematch, they did invoke that, and they did, which surprises a little bit. So we were waiting for them to come back to us with a date for that. But then in the meantime, the WBA have said that, so this has all got to get all sorted out. But
it's going to be one or
we'll
two.
See. Yeah.
Well, great stuff from Dave Calwell. And again, a fella that's been around a bit. He's still only 27. I'm not talking about Dave Calwell now, not you, not me, Ant, either. But Sam Eggington, he's in action this weekend, and a fascinating career, fascinating guy, really. And he's in there again. Loves the tough fights. He's got a Frenchman in the opposing corner, Bilal, we'll call him, his surname Kitu. He comes over here with an unbeaten record, but if you look at where he's been, he's never boxed outside of France or Morocco or Western Sahara. That's it. So he comes here as a bit of an unknown quantity. And he's well known in France, actually, as being a semi-pro footballer. So a different one for Eggington to face, but you'd expect Sam to come through this one.
You would expect Sam to come through. The only thing is, and I don't believe Sam would make the same mistake. I remember it was in Manchester when he lost his European title, I think it was it, or his Coldwell? One of them anyway. Yes, the Tanzanian, in the European. But yes, he's expected, and he got shocked. It was a huge upset. So you certainly won't be complacent like that. But I think Sam Eggington, there's a lot of people, and probably I'll admit me myself, after Liam Smith, I was thinking it'd be nice to see Sam call it a day. But since then, him, John Pegg and the team have gone away, they've worked hard, and he's in great form. He's having a real Indian summer. It's a bit wrong to say at the age of 27, but the Cheeseman fight could have easily gone his way. A fantastic fight. But he's been top in the energy show. He's had some great wins. And now he's getting him in position then sort of to be looking at eliminators for world titles, where a few years ago that looked no chance for happening. So it's great to see Sam, who's just a very honest pro and just what you'd call a real throwback fighter. I remember him literally coming to the gym years ago to spar Liam Smith years before they boxed. It was literally socks in his tracksuit bottoms, didn't really have a proper protector on. Ed guard wasn't the Ed guard he should have been wearing. Ed gumshoed in and bang. It was like a bit of a tear up, jump out, get changed, straight back on the road. He's a real throwback fighter, Sam Higginson.
He is indeed. Great stuff, though, from him as well. This is the fellow that he's fighting at a better weight now. Obviously, when we talk about that defeat going back into the Manchester Arena, he was obviously a division below. He's going to be fighting slightly heavier than normal in this one, but 154, he can still mix it. You'd feel he's much better at that weight. A fella that we thought we were going to see mix it as well, and one of your mates, your old stable mates, Callum Johnson, isn't going to get in now because Frank Warren would have thought he had a really busy weekend ahead of him, but the Saturday show, we believe, has gone. Callum, as well as Sonny Edwards, we knew about Sonny anyway a couple of days ago, but Callum, how's CJ coping with all of this now?
He's absolutely gutted. I think the inactivity in Callum's career, we was actually just joking about just a few days ago, going, CJ, you've never been this active, and we're joking about it, and he's like, can't believe it. Get out before Christmas. There's certainly going to be turkey on the table this year. We spoke too soon. But hopefully, obviously, it's still very raw, the news, like literally in the last few hours. He's going to find out. Hopefully, he's going to get back out very soon. And I'm sure, like you say, the opponent's going to reschedule. Obviously, you've got a feel for Sonny Edwards, but also his opponent, Jason Mayo, Manchester over here in the country. That's fell through 5 weeks, but sometimes these things happen. And unfortunately, there's still a show going ahead Friday night. Left from the gym as his second fight, Callum Thompson, very talented prospect from Liverpool, and some other prospects on the card, which should be good.
Yeah, what also should be good, although it's got a massive asterisk to it now, is if we cross the pond and Oscar Valdez and Robson Conceição, we've seen what's gone on over the last week or so. Valdez tested positive for a banned substance. It's a fat burner, a diet suppressant, if you like. Again, we've heard the usual kind of stuff that never intentionally taken anything, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that obviously the WBC have given it the green light and also, the commission that have to sign this off as well. They all want to see the fight go ahead. Again, Valdez has been fantastic up to now in the career, but where do you stand with all this?
Listen, let's be honest, this fight should not be taking place at the weekend. And the only thing is the amount of new fans that Oscar Valdez got after the unbelievable performance against Miguel Berchelt, who's an absolute monster at super featherweight, and probably, without doubt, is going to get knockout of the year. To then the next fight for this to come out, it's you can't help but raise question marks. And I know he's come out since saying, I'm a clean athlete and it's from a herbal tea, but then you're seeing people who are very, very knowledgeable saying there's not an herbal tea on the market. I think I've seen Victor Conte put it on his Twitter, who knows a lot about performance-enhancing drugs. For him to say there's not herbal tea that contains that substance, there's not. It's not good. It's not good. And the Robson Cancelo, if I remember right, he's the Fabella kid from the Olympics. He won Olympic gold. So what a story that would be. But again, let's be honest, this fight should not be taking place under what's just happened. It's, we never want to see that, but to say something was to go wrong weekend. Can you imagine the backlash, the criticism that boxing's going to get? I for one, and I know there's so many others, this fight should not be taking place. And I know you'll get people on social media going, oh, well, I hope you keep that energy with British fighters. Listen, if someone takes a performance-enhancing drug, they should be banned from the sport. And that's just my opinion. It's a lot of other people's opinion, no matter what, especially if they knowingly take it. I don't know whether Oscar Valdez has or not. I'm not, but he's failed a drug test and he's still able to defend his world title a week later. It shouldn't be happening. It's that simple.
I think that's the point as well, isn't it? It's regardless of if there was a bit more investigation that could go into it, but the fact that the fight is going to be taking place after he's just tested positive makes it all the more kind of hard to understand. You
can't get your head around it. There's no explanation for it because it's just wrong. It should not be happening. If this was happening at a level where, this kind of publicity or this, with someone with a higher status as him, like you see fighters who get banned for years for something a lot less. So listen, the fight should not be happening. It just questions, but it doesn't question. You know what it proves? It proves that boxing is a sport, but it's a business. Professional boxing is a business before it's a sport. It's that simple. It's
also the problem is there is absolutely nothing that is, as in terms of what you're talking about, there's no governance across all of this, because you've got Avada, you've got WADA, you've got all the separate commissions, you've got the sanctioning bodies, and not one of them, there isn't one list of banned substances that everyone can say, yeah, let's all agree on that.
It's utter madness. And you mentioned it then, and about it being, it's a performance enhancing drug. It can be used for a lot of things. We don't know if it's only been used, what it's been used for, because there's a number of things that it can be used for to flush out other things. But if it's unknowingly been used, however, not by a herbal tea, it's just confusing. But all in all, we both know this fight should not, we both know, and everyone in boxing really knows, this fight should not be allowed to happen weekend, which is a shame, because on paper, it's a fantastic fight.
Yeah. Well, moving on to happier stuff, because Sky, we didn't talk about it last week because, of course, we were on the road in Leeds last week. But, of course, Sky have revealed their lineup, if you like, of fighters alongside Boxer. And they've got Top Rank as part of the whole setup now. But just to have a little look at that as well, because I think that we're all in agreement that, and many people that you talk to, the more people that are putting boxing on, terrestrial TV, streaming services, whatever, it's all great. Bring it all on. Eddie Hearn says the same thing, said it last week. The more that we can see good fighters in action, and the more fights we can see. So with Sky's lineup, Chris Eubank Jr. might say is the star of the show. Josh Taylor via Top Rank, Savannah Marshall, Claressa Shields via Top Rank. So there's a mix there, and then some of the likes of Caroline Dubois, who's turning over now and will appear on Sky. I mean, what did you make of the whole lineup, if you like?
I think there's some fantastic names in that lineup, the ones you've just mentioned, and some others, and without doubt, there's going to be some more to be added. Caroline Dubois, she surprised many. We didn't know whether she was going to turn over or not, but an amazing prospect, and one of the Olympians, the first of the Olympians to turn over or to officially sign with someone. And I think to that roster, I think we will see one or two more Olympians. I think there's some great fights to be made. Listen, the standout one, the biggest fight in women's boxing that could be made, I think, in Savannah Marshall, Claressa Shields. That now takes a huge step closer, which we expect to see. There's some great fights. I think Chris Eubank Jr. is always he always brings entertainment, whichever way it be, but the lad can certainly fight. I know he's topping one of the first shows, but it's I think he's talking about being in a huge fight either later in the year or next. Obviously, he's got to come through this next one. So I think there's going to be some huge names on it. And you just mentioned it then. Eddie mentioned it himself. All the big promoters will mention it. The more boxing that's available for eyes to see, the better for the sport, in my opinion.
And let's see now if you think this is better for the sport, because we're going to go back to one of our favourite subjects now, and it's not YouTubers. It's not YouTubers. No. It's something a little bit different, but it's, you're only 34, Anthony. Evander Holyfield's nearly 60, and we have this Triller event this weekend. There's also David Haye in action, and Silva Ortiz, two MMA guys, are going to box it out. We're going to get the opinion. We're going to get the opinion first before I get yours now, of a man we spoke to a bit earlier again. So we're going to hear from a fellow that knows David Haye inside and out, part of the Haymaker team. He's been in opposite corners to him. Let's hear what David Coldwell thinks of Haye versus Fournier.
So when I first saw this, I was like, what? They're mates. And I know they're very good mates. So I sent Dave a message and I just said, what's this? I think I said a sparring session to beat your mate up, because mates, and you'll have done the same thing. Sometimes your best mates you spar with, you have the best wars. You have great sparring sessions with your best mates. You really do. It's mad how it just comes out. So it could be really, really exciting, but it's probably not. But when he told me what he was earning and the money they're throwing him, straight away I just thought, do you know what? Fair play, because every one of us would do the same thing. I'm telling you, if we was getting paid what they're getting paid to do this, it's all right us sat here because we're not getting paid, we're not being asked to do that. But we would do it, because when he told me what he's getting paid more than, I was like, well, and straight away my attitude changed, because at first I was like, fucking hell, mate, you're taking piss. But then I kind of changed. I thought, it's a game changer. I mean, you'd be an idiot not to, really. The only thing that I don't like is all of a sudden now it's gone from being, if I'm right, it's gone from being an exhibition to an actual being sanctioned to go on the record as a professional fight. And that, I think, I'm not a fan of that, because these sort of like gimmicks and celebrity fights and exhibitions. If it's an exhibition and it's like a basically televised sparring session, things like that, if you want to watch it, fair dues. If you want to pay to watch it, your choice. But it's not. I don't look at it as serious. This is boxing. This is an advert for boxing. Or this takes away from boxing. This is a separate entity. It's like, it's like when there's. I mean, I'm not a golfer, but when they do the actual Masters and stuff like that, it's professional golfers. But then they do these pro celebrity tours and things like that. They're not real. That's not real stuff, is it? As such. So it's kind of like that. I just feel that it's dangerous because you're getting blows to the head as an older man. As we get older, we don't recover or take shots as well, and we don't recover as well as what we used to. And so, the damage can be magnified as well. And, forget about David. David has looked after himself and he's, apart from his body injuries and things like that, he's a fit guy. Yeah, fair enough. But some people that are getting back involved and stuff aren't of like that and aren't, athletes, even though they're retired. So, it's even more dangerous for them. But then when you're talking about Evander Holyfield, and I know aesthetically he's always kept himself in shape, the guy's nearly 60. It's dangerous. It is dangerous when you're getting punched in the head. We've seen where it can take one shot to cause real damage to somebody, and that's the thing where it's all laughter, fun and games and giggles, and we can just moan about it being, is it taken away from the sport, and you shouldn't really be watching it. That's all a bit of fun and a bit of banter. But if one of these guys gets hurt, then it's serious, and that's my feeling towards it.
Yeah. Just a final one before we go, and Anthony will have something to say about this as well. Just wanted to get your thoughts on the big news, the return of Ronaldo, and how excited you are for this weekend, Dave.
That's wicked. Do you know what? Me and my little boy, we were absolutely buzzing. Absolutely buzzing. Listen, don't get me wrong. We're devastated when we thought he was going to other off. But then when he comes to United, brilliant.
Did you have to pick the shirts out the bin, Dave?
No. Do you know what? No, I didn't. I just couldn't believe he were going to sign for City. I just couldn't believe it. Yeah. And somebody actually said early doors to me, I bet that's a ploy to spark some interest. Because when you were talking about these rumours, and I were hearing about him, talking to different clubs in Europe, and I'm like, United aren't even thinking about it. And me and my little boy were thinking about it. We're talking about it. He was saying, well, we've got Cavani, we've got Greenwood, we've got... And I'm like, yeah, but it's Ronaldo, and what it would do for forget about, he's not the same Ronaldo. So I don't expect him to be the same Ronaldo. But the guy still scores goals, right? And also what he does for the whole club, what he does for that dressing room. And what he does for the young kids like your Greenwoods and that are coming through, that's massive. That is massive. So yeah, we're excited. We're really excited. Do you know what? I would love us to go out and get a good top quality holding midfielder or a CDM. I'd love us to get a top quality player like that, and then I think we're good to go.
Yeah, Dave Coldwell there. Well, the figures obviously mind-boggling, so there it is. But of course, there are some other things that everyone's having their say on all of this. And producer Josh, as he likes to do, he gets his little black book out every now and again, and he tracks people down. And he wanted to get the thoughts on a variety of things, and not just obviously the Triller events, but also the big fights that are coming up that we expect to see, the YouTube fights, just about everything. Josh got stuck into the one and only Al Bernstein.
Joined here by Hall of Famer boxing commentator Al Bernstein. Al, thank you for joining us on the Betfred Boxing Show. First of all, you've just returned from Cleveland for the pay-per-view event between Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley. What did you make of that show, and what do you make of these events and YouTubers and MMA fighters and different people from different sports coming into the world of boxing?
Well, I think they're one-offs. You have to judge them each as a one-off. I don't think they have any monstrous impact on the sport. In the case of Jake Paul, for instance, he's obviously his marketing and branding skills as a on the internet brings with him a constituency of people who are willing to buy his boxing matches. And what, if any, impact that has on the sport of boxing is completely unknown. So it's a singular kind of event. And that's the way I look at them. I don't think it's not replacing anything in boxing. It's not a magic elixir for boxing. It's simply an addition.
Definitely. And it's obviously going to be drawing new eyes onto the sport, hopefully. And that could be a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's unknown how many of those people that come to see his fight. I mean, like, we put on a really nice card that night, I think, and had some interesting boxing and some good storylines. So maybe some of those people will be interested in that and say, well, this is pretty good. I should watch more boxing. Will they? I don't know, but it's conceivable.
And do you think it's something we'll continue to see? I mean, obviously, Showtime pay-per-view, it's obviously worthwhile because we had Logan Paul versus Mayweather, and that was on a Showtime pay-per-view. This one was on Showtime pay-per-view. So people are obviously buying these events for Showtime to carry on showing them.
Yeah, we'll see how they play out. There was Tyson Jones, which had a built-in appeal. The Jake Paul did his two fights. Now, the Logan Paul Mayweather one also drew. That was, I think, close to 1 million buys. I think it depends on what each one, what each one does. I think they're all on their own. I don't think you can make a judgment about the genre. I think it depends very much on each individual one.
Obviously, you work for Showtime and stuff, but you got Fox covering boxing in America now. Obviously, DAZN is very big in America and has started doing stuff here, especially with Matchroom side of things. What do these new channels and new ways of watching boxing? How has that affected the way Showtime do their stuff? And what do you make of it?
Well, it helps the sport. ESPN, which is available to many people, Fox, which is an over-the-air, as you said, DAZN, which is, because it is a platform on the internet, is open to everyone in the whole world. And so I think all those platforms help the sport. We are in a unique position because our subscribers like having boxing on Showtime. So that fuels the sport. And of course, we've added Bellator, which has been very well received. So we've made a commitment to being a network that has combat sports. So we're in a little different situation in that we're catering to a certain group, and they're enjoying the boxing. But overall, when you put all those platforms together, there's a lot of ways to see boxing, and that's good, and because you don't, and then there are matches that, of course, get to be made pay-per-view, and a lot of times people complain, they say there's too many pay-per-views, and maybe there are sometimes not, but they can ameliorate that problem by, if they don't want to, don't buy it. And then guess what? That means the next time that guy fights, you won't be a pay-per-view guy.
We've got some cracking fights coming up, Al, and just wanted to get your thoughts on a few of the big fights we've got coming up, both this side of the Atlantic and that side of the Atlantic. First of all, 25th of September, Anthony Joshua versus Usyk. How do you see that one going?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Usyk is, one of the 2 or 3 best cruiserweights that ever lived. Evander Holyfield is right up there with him, obviously, was a brilliant cruiserweight. Usyk was terrific at that weight class, just superb, great boxer. As a heavyweight, he hasn't yet found that sweet spot. One of the things that I would have thought would be his advantage would be that he would be a smooth boxer, but he's fighting at a higher weight than I thought he would, and he hasn't found that ability to be. He's won, but it hasn't been, I don't think, the way he planned it. So he's going to have to come up with something against Anthony Joshua that heretofore we haven't seen from him as a heavyweight, and that's going to be a tall order.
Definitely. And then we all wanted to see Joshua versus Tyson Fury. That obviously hasn't happened, but Tyson, Deontay Wilder for the 3rd time. Do you think it will be repeat or revenge in that one? Yeah,
October 9th. And by the way, for all the folks coming over that you're reaching, but on the night before the October 9th fight, they should come to the Tuscany Hotel and Casino, where I'm going to be doing a musical performance, so they can come over there and see that. But my gratuitous plug. But I think that fight is an intriguing one to me, because it's really weird when you look at their history together. Tyson Fury has won most of the rounds, right? And yet Deontay Wilder was about a second away from beating him in the first fight, which might have meant there was going to be no second fight, maybe, right? I don't know. And so it's very weird to kind of handicap this and figure it out. I think Tyson Fury has to be the favorite, and he is, because of what he did the last time, and because we don't know if Wilder can figure things out. But we know Wilder still has power. We know that he put Tyson Fury down twice. Once, again, had him very close to being out of there. So I think it's going to be an interesting fight. I think you have to see Fury as the favorite in that fight.
No, definitely. And in terms of, like I said before, we all wanted to see, especially over here in the UK, we all wanted to see Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. Do you think that's a fight we'll ever get to see?
Yeah, I think if they both win, I do think it'll happen. I really do. I'm very optimistic about that. And it'll reverberate not just there, but everywhere else as well. And I think it's great. I mean, I think it'll be, if it happens, and of course, again, their opponents have something to say about it. It would be, you would be a better judge than me, but I think it would be one of the biggest British fights of all time.
No, definitely. And it's a fight. When it was originally supposed to happen, it was set to happen in Saudi Arabia, which would have been a bit of a shame. But money does talk in boxing. But I think for 2 British heavyweights, unification bout, it should be happening in the UK.
Yeah, I think everybody hopes that fight would happen in the UK. Obviously, you could fill up Wembley Stadium like that for that fight, and but people want to. Obviously, boxing is a sport where you want to make as much money as you can on your endeavor. But everyone would want that to happen in the UK.
No, definitely. And then Canelo, he's going to be taking on Plant. That's been confirmed. How do you see this one going?
Well, the reason that fight's happening is because Plant has one of the 168-pound titles, and in this case, the burden of proof is all on Caleb Plant. You know, he won his title against Jose Usyk, a fight that he was an underdog in, has defended it against very weak opposition. So we haven't really seen Caleb Plant. We've seen Caleb Plant in against B-level, maybe B-plus level fighters. If you want to call Usyk a B-plus level fighter, I would call him a B-level fighter. We have never seen Caleb Plant in against an upper echelon fighter yet. So now, having said that, there have been cases in boxing history where the first time someone did get the chance to do that, they showed us they were great. And Caleb Plant has improved in recent fights in the last couple of years. So clearly he's shown a continual evolution as a better fighter. But whether he can handle Canelo is another question. He's going to have to box close to the perfect fight to do it. And he's going to have to find a way to box in a way that doesn't, you know, Canelo can let lull periods happen and let rounds go by. His trick is to win all those rounds, not get hurt in the rounds where Canelo picks it up, and have enough rounds at the end of the day where he can win a decision.
No, definitely. And then a fight that's been announced today as well, Herring taking on Stevenson in October 23rd in Atlanta. How do you see that bout going?
Yeah, that's a good fight. Shakur Stevenson and Herring both are excellent fighters. Stevenson, the younger, presumably with a bright future. And I think it's going to be a very good fight. Herring's one of those guys you don't want to underestimate, and he is the champion. And, you know, I think it's going to be a good fight. This year has produced many, many, many really good boxing matches. And I think that's going to be one of them.
No, fantastic. And of course, you've got your podcast as well, Unplugged. How can fans tune into that, Al?
Yeah, just go to YouTube and put in Al Bernstein Unplugged. It's on all the major podcast channels as well. If you like to get podcasts, but if you want to go on YouTube and see the video version of it, just put in Al Bernstein Unplugged and it'll take you to the page.
Definitely. Well, it's always a pleasure speaking to you, Al. Thank you so much for your time. And like I say, it's been a cracking year of boxing already, but we've got plenty more to look forward to.
It has, and we have several months left. And as you pointed out in some of those fights we look forward to, there are a lot of good matches still to come. This is going to be, but this will go down as one of the better years of product that boxing's put out there in the last 10 years. And there have been some good years, a few down ones. I think last year, obviously, because of the COVID, wasn't perfect. But the last part of last year, when boxing, you know, was able to find its footing, there were very good fights. So I'm not a cheerleader. I cover the sport, but you got to be objective and say, you know, when there's good matches, there's good matches.
So Al Bernstein there talking about, well, many, many things, but obviously the kind of YouTube situation, he's not quite sure how many eyeballs it's going to bring to the table. You were part of, obviously, the BT show recently, the Paul Woodley show, Anthony. And again, has your opinion changed on any of this?
Do you know what it is, Dom? Some people will say, well, you're part of the problem, but I try and look for the positives in it. And there is positives because on the Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley fight, we've seen Amanda Serrano get the biggest audience and I think the biggest payday of her career, which then builds towards a super fight between her and Katie Taylor. We've seen possibly a breakout star, Stilova against Baranchek. And then obviously the build-up was continued with Tommy Fury and Jake Paul himself. There's Daniel Dubois on the card. So it gives fighters opportunities. And certainly with Serrano, it gives her the exposure that she's needed for a long time. I always say, listen, the more eyes on the sport, the better. And I think what you've got to think of, a lot of the people who'll be watching Jake Paul might be kids who are a little bit unfit, watching YouTube an awful lot. I'm not saying it's going to bring them as boxing fans going to shows, but without sounding like a saint, it might then think, you know what, I'm going to bring them to the gym. I'm going to get myself to the gym for an hour or two a week in a boxing gym, whether it's to be like Jake Paul or whatever, just makes them a little bit healthier. So I think you've got to look at the positives. But yeah, listen, there'll always be the hardcore who frown upon a YouTuber and an MMA fighter being pay-per-view.
I know you are Team Paul, so I won't pressure on that anymore now. But obviously, there is a fight that's coming up that we know is going to happen, which will get an awful lot of attention. And we can absolutely guarantee a lot of eyeballs on this one as well. And is Anthony Joshua against Alexander Usyk at the still brand spanking, it feels like anyway, the Tottenham Stadium. Yeah. I mean, that is going to be something to behold. We can't wait for that one. And of course, the man that's promoting it, who's very, very giddy about it, we did catch up. I'd ask him all about it. Eddie Hearn.
AJ, Usyk, and again, you're talking about being nervous for this fight. You've got to be nervous for AJ and that one as well. And it's right. That's another one when you think of Headingley, which is a brilliant venue. But then Spurs Stadium,
it's unbelievable. You know, just under 70,000. I mean, that fight's a brilliant fight. You know, it's another fight. When I find myself laying in bed at night and just analysing fights, that's when you know you've got a good fight and a good card. And I must have gone through the Usyk fight 1,000 times. You know. You've got 2 Olympic gold medalists from London. You've got the unified heavyweight world champion. You've got the undisputed cruiserweight world champion. I get less nervous now with AJ because of the experience he's gained. When he started and he was fighting Charles Martin and Parker and Klitschko, he actually really didn't know what he was doing. You know, he had potential, he had ability, but he wasn't a seasoned fighter. Now he's a seasoned fighter. You know, and I believe in his ability. I believe in the improvements that he's made. But I also know Usyk's a really good fighter. I think AJ said, you know, I don't buy into the too big, too strong mentality. I do, right? I think he has to get in there, be explosive, let his hands go and beat him up. He has the skill to compete with Usyk. But is that what you really want to do? I mean, that's Usyk's strength. So I'm sure you'll see a bit of that. But when he gets the chance to let his hands go, this guy punches with ferocious speed and power. And I'm not sure Usyk can stand up to that.
Eddie, we'll let you go. We've only got about 352 interviews to do.
We'll do every one of them. Don't worry.
Yeah, good man. Thanks, Eddie.
Cheers, mate.
Well, we're just about done now, Anthony. But as we always like to do, we want to find out what's going on with you. And I know for a fact that this week is actually a very, very busy weekend for you. So tell us what you're doing.
Yeah, busy weekend and a special weekend. I hope so. This weekend I've got my fight at Jake James on Saturday night in Bolton. Sunday afternoon I have both James Moorcroft and Rhiannon Dixon on in Bolton. However, Saturday afternoon, an hour after Rhiannon Dixon and James Moorcroft weigh in, I've somehow got to get to Old Trafford for 3 p.m. with my little lad for the return for the homecoming.
As we spoke to Dave Coldwell earlier about that, Ronaldo's appearance, and you're going to be pushed for time, but you'll do it. You'll be all right.
Yes, I am. I think I will have to make sure. I think I'll be professional as always and literally be trying to throw my fighters on the scale so I can get off for a few hours before my fight tonight. But yeah, a special weekend at Old Trafford, I hope. I think a great memory, hopefully a memory that will last a lifetime for a young lad.
Yeah, well, again, it's going to be a little bit of an atmosphere, I think, at Old Trafford as well. But good luck with the fighters on the shows as well. And,
thank you very much.
Plenty of talent there. And I'm lucky enough, I'll be going off to Carl Greaves' show in Leicester as part of the Fight Zone team as well. So that moves on around the country again. Sure. So it's going to be great to be back at Fight Zone. We were in Colne last week, the very atmospheric, charming little venue. Josh Holmes was top of the bill. That's fantastic. Some place that, isn't it?
Fantastic venue for boxing. Not a bad seat in the house. And I think, take Josh Holmes back there. I think, before he gets too big for it, I think it'd be nice to see him go back there once or twice again.
Yeah, fantastic. But we look forward to Leicester as well, Carl Greaves, and that Fight Zone show. But of course, as ever, thank you very much indeed for watching. We'll see you soon. You as well, of course, and I'll see you soon. All the best.